Hi, and welcome back to another installment of the Mind Management Mentors podcast. I'm Cuddy Cudworth. I am a mind management mentor. What is mind management? We'll talk about that shortly, but today's guest, first of all, introduce yourself, Dave.
I am Dave Sleet. I am author of the Psychological Hive, Connectivity for Success.
I love this. Now, I don't think that was a big enough introduction for you, Dave. You are so well versed in so much. Every conversation I've had with you, I walk away going, I thought I knew some stuff, and I know nothing compared to Dave Sleet. And we'll talk about the first time that we met, and we didn't realize that I'd met, we lived in the same village, and all those kind of things. And then the conversation that we started having about your psychological hive and how it's going to be an absolute game changer for businesses, for branding around the world, businesses around the world. And I was like, I feel like I know somebody who is going to be super famous, and I'm going to do a podcast with him. So this is completely selfish, Dave. I'm not even going to lie. I just want to be the first podcast with Dave Sleet. That's it, because I know what you've created, what you're going to be, and how it's going to move and change the world. It's going to change the world. It's going to change businesses.
I am trying not to get overwhelmed by the potential that this has.
Dave Sleet is officially, hear it here first from Cuddy Cudworth, just the UK's leading mind management coach. That's all, nothing else. Dave Sleet is going to change the world with the Psychological Hive. There is no doubt in my mind the power of what you're creating and where you're going to be. And all I ever want from you, Dave, is, I met him for a coffee and leaving.
But we've done more than that. I mean,
let's go back to tell us more about you, Dave, because it's not just, you've got to deep dive who Dave is. I know who you are, but the listeners need to know who you are. Let's go back to your childhood, because that's a big part of how you became a life coach, how you became a business coach, and how you got into psychology. So give us that little rundown of who Dave is, so much deeper than the Psychological Hive. Tell me about Dave.
Okay. God, you want to go back to childhood?
Yeah.
I'm wiping my eye. I'm not crying, honest. So I was brought up in a family that fostered over 90 children in just over 10 years. And I saw every kind of evil that could be done to a child or a young person. So from 4 years old to 14 years old, I pretty much learned what it was like to be the protective kind of component for somebody that's vulnerable. And that's a lot to take in for any child. And back then, there was not the awareness that there is today. And I have to say that things have changed. Things have improved for those families that provide support. It's not perfect by any stretch, but it's an awful lot better than it was. And yeah, my family would literally get phone calls at 2 o'clock in the morning from the local police station saying, can you take, 4 children that we can't even get hold of social services right now, and that's what we would do. It would be like action stations,
Yeah.
But that was the growing that I had. I got into athletics, and sport was my release, and in those early days, and as a kid I developed a really fast running capacity, and I ended up running with Belgrave Harriers.
Right.
and I trained with some amazing people around me. Dwayne Ledejo, John Regis, were all on the track, training when I was around. Um, and that became my first introduction into coaching.
Yeah.
Was athletics coaching. At 17, I confirmed I was going to sign up for the military, and I got a head injury 4 days before my kind of medical to go, right, that's it, you're fit, you're ready, you can go. And I was fighting for consciousness for 6 days.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And that's a life-changing impact.
It does.
So for the 9-10 years that I thought my life was going to be military service was taken away in a heartbeat. And that's another one of those big stepping stones that go, okay, life just kind of going in a different direction now.
Yeah.
It's one of those things when I look back now, and I can acknowledge that for a good couple of years after that head injury, I was in free fall.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for two specific really good friends at that time and a really good therapist, I probably would not have got through those couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I fell into the hospitality industry, and I was exceedingly lucky that I was able to learn the craft, and learning very quickly within a multinational organization gave me a huge insight into kind of the training side, and with the experience that I had sports coaching, of kind of the approach to the military, gave me a really unique kind of take on what it was like to be training people that were coming into this business.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I ended up working on redeveloping the training protocols for that hospitality company.
Yeah.
I worked on the first 90-day induction program,
Yeah.
and kind of really shook up what hotel training was like.
Yeah.
And we stopped putting new staff behind experienced practitioners and hoping that they were going to pick up the skills.
Yeah.
And we actually focused on dedicated training, giving them the skills. So within 4 or 5 days, they were operational,
Yeah.
rather than 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
And that was my first real indication that I had some kind of skill set
Yeah.
for cutting out a lot of the faff that was kind of in the industry at the time. So that was kind of the real kind of, right, this is the path I'm going to be on now.
Yeah.
And I was in the training room in Mayfair.
Yeah.
Had whole group of new starters into the company, and we had a HR training manager from the US sat at the back of the room, and we're talking 2002.
Mhm.
And he said, "You're not training these staff, you are coaching them." And I didn't know that there was a difference. I didn't know what that meant. And he explained, he said, come and have a look, see what this looks like. And when I realized what that was, game changer, right there and then. And I kind of started then seeing what became the Psychological Hive.
Yeah.
And when you can break down what are those elements that are present in successful companies and successful people,
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's a different dynamic. It's a different conversation altogether. And that's where I started kind of focusing on going, right, why is it that all of these companies, and I'm not going to name them because I am not paying for their advertising,
Right.
but we all know who is successful in our minds, right? So if we can understand the elements that exist in those companies and the people that we see as successful, we never get told what they are. No business course tells you these elements. And this is why the most successful people stay in a category completely separate to everyone else. Because we're not given those kind of secret ingredients. And the Psych Hive was kind of looking for those secret ingredients. And it took 20 odd years to get there, but we got there.
So when we chat, so what you've done, and the story is amazing, and you're absolutely right, especially when it comes to like kids, what kids have to see in their lives. They shouldn't have to see that. We know that, and things are getting better. And what your family did is a credit to the world, and for yourself, because I know, Dave, that you were part of that as well, and I'm sure you were a part of helping the kids through as the one of the adults within that household as well. So that's amazing. That really, really is. And I know that we're going to do another podcast talking about APA with Siobhan, because I know that we're gonna do something moving forward with that. But just for you and for the people listening now, when you told me what Psychological Hive was and the effort that you'd put into it, I literally said, and if you don't know these names, you don't know these names, or if you do know these names, I'm like, this is the next, and I'm going to say the names. This is the next Stephen Covey, and this is the next Brendan Burchard. Two of the elite, exceptional coaching premises and ideas out there. You've got something that rivals that for businesses. There's not just the successful part. There's the mindset, the everything that's involved in modeling that success and putting that into other businesses. Other businesses can thrive and be just as successful. What you've put together with the psychological hive is going to be that much. Everyone in the personal development world knows Steve Covey. You spoke to Steve Covey's one of his kids, I believe.
Steve Covey's son, one of his sons, has developed the 7 habits of highly effective people into a version for children. And that, for me, when I saw that he'd done that, I was like, oh my God, this just shows how powerful understanding those building blocks is. And I wanted to kind of take everything that I'd learned, everything that I'd understood, and go, what Stephen did with 7 habits was very much for the business arena. And the one thing that stood out for me with 7 habits was it didn't address the conflict between staff and businesses. But if you could iron that crease out, if you could take that away, then all of the psychological conflicts that come would kind of ease off. And it's almost like businesses forgot that their staff don't leave their psychology at the door. It's like, it's impossible. It's like phrases like think outside the box. It's like, if you employ a team of people that are all look the same, think the same, experience similar experiences, all you're going to get is different shades of the same solution. I mean, you look at the most successful businesses, the most successful people, you would never imagine that the people that work in those companies being in the same room, let alone being in the same business. But it works. And it
Yeah.
works because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that uncomfortability is the unity.
Yeah.
And it's so counterintuitive to everything else that we get taught.
Yes.
But when we embrace that discomfort,
Yeah.
what happens? It's genius moments.
That's
But
when you actually, in all fairness, that's when you start putting yourself into gamma brainwaves. Once you've got that uncomfortability, you're more receptive, but you get the genius moments.
yeah,
That's when we go into. I've just done a video course on gamma waves and how to process things in gamma state.
mhm.
So you're absolutely right. Once we get into that uncomfortable moment, and that's what everyone's always talked about, is get out of your comfort zone. Get out of your comfort zone. Nothing grows in the comfort zone. So what you've created, and I think you've touched on it, and we can go. So it is going to be phenomenal. There's so many amazing facets to what you got. I can't wait to read the book. I've never been. I keep messaging. When's the book out? When's the book out? When's the book out? And I know you're doing a video course, and I know, are we allowed to talk about you being in conjunction with MIT? Am I allowed to mention that?
Well, you just did. Um, so, so one of the things that we are looking to secure is the college reading list
Yeah.
placements. So colleges around the world are being approached to formally review the material.
Yeah.
And because we're doing this slightly different.
Yeah.
This isn't gonna be a book on its own.
Yeah.
That if I said to you, I mean, we've talked about this before. Most people pick up a self-help book and they read the first 3 chapters.
Yeah.
And then they stop.
Yeah.
They never get to the back cover.
Yeah.
Because in those first 3 chapters, they've already gone, this isn't working for me.
Yeah.
Well, there's only 4 chapters in the Psychological Hive.
Which is against genius already.
Right? But what there is a whole heap of support videos.
Yeah.
For both the chapters.
Yeah.
And the layers that make up the hive.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So the book itself will have QR codes in.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to get access to those videos.
Yeah.
We're also going to be doing a 1-day seminar as the conduit to the final layer of the hive.
Yeah.
So there's a whole amount of support that goes in that process of developing a new mindset.
Yeah.
Because none of us can develop a new mindset on our own.
Developing a new mindset. Brilliant. I love it.
We evolve based on our experiences, but also on our understanding of those experiences.
Yeah.
And if we don't understand the experience, we file it under N. Never go back to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is where, if we are going to try and embrace what it is that makes the most successful people successful, without the experiences that they grew organically,
Yeah.
then we have to embrace our own experiences, understand those, and use them for ourselves.
Yeah.
And when we can do that, all of a sudden those elements start to make sense, and we go, oh, actually, yeah, that bit fits to that, and that bit fits to that, and that bit fits to that. And all of a sudden you've built your own hive.
Yeah.
Because the whole point of the Psychological Hive is it's already the most successful organizational structure on the planet.
Yeah.
You think of Hive most people will think of a beehive.
It seems that hive is quite a popular word these days. I keep seeing it pop up a lot. Is it a buzzword, hive? Is that what it is?
I think it became a buzzword because it came away from hubs.
Ah, so whereas hubs was the buzzword, funny how we've used the word buzz for hive, but now the hive is the buzzword.
Right?
Right.
And but most people don't understand why a hive is successful.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to do was reconnect to what a hive is
Yeah.
and take it away from it being a buzzword. So the most successful organizational structure on the planet has been here for billions of years is a hive.
Yeah.
And the success of a hive is based on each individual cell supporting the cell next to it.
Yeah.
And as each cell gets stronger, the hive gets bigger. If we can do that psychologically,
I love
what
it.
can we achieve?
I'm buzzing for this. Dave, honestly, so let's veer off to why we know each other, because it's I think that's a cool story as it is itself. So I used to do a radio show, and it was with Mentalk, Russ Kane. We got
Men's
chatting.
radio show.
We knew an acquaintance, and he said, "Cuddy, would you do a radio show?" I said, "I'd love to do a radio show." So I did a radio show, and you used to comment on the radio show. Actually, Cuddy, you're correct. Yeah, it's this, it's this, it's this. And when I'm on a radio show and you need those comments, I'm like, well, at least someone's talking on the radio show, and I've got someone to bounce off. So you were like you were the third person in the radio show. And I was like, yeah, Dave, you're absolutely right. Stop doing the radio show. Never thought anything about it. And I'm a massive fan of cold water therapy, so I have a dipping group called the Five Dippers. And we you just came up to me and went, "Are you Cuddy?" I'm like, "Yeah." Just down at the local beach at Meffel, just at leaving. He went, "Are you Cuddy?" I'm like, "Yeah." He went, "I know Russ Kane." I'm like, "Oh, pleased to meet you, mate. Pleased to meet you, Dave. Yeah, I know Russ Kane, lovely guy down in London." He went, "Yeah, I used to comment on your radio show." I'm like, took me a while, but I went, "Oh, there was one guy that used to just comment on every radio show." And I was like, "This guy knows so much stuff. He probably knows more than I do." And you were just like, "Do you live here?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've always been up here." And I live up here. And I was like, how weird is that? We were living in the same village. Didn't even know we lived in the same village.
Yeah.
You were walking the dog, or you were out with it. I've forgotten what it was.
Yeah, I was walking the dog.
And we met on the beach at the dipping, and then we went for coffee. And I'm like, "Oh my god, this is genius! What you're doing, Dave." So I'm so glad we've got. So that's how we met. That's how we know each other. And I'm a big believer in the universe. I am a big believer in the universe that when the right people are supposed to meet, they are supposed to meet. And I will, not that I'm in any place to endorse what you're doing in any way whatsoever, but I think your hive, your psychological hive, is going to be one of the. I can see it, and I think when you see somebody else's vision, because there's such clarity for it, and when you're talking to those people that have done something quite similar, but there's the missing links. You've created a thing of beauty, Dave. And I can't wait to buy your book. I can't wait to do your videos. And I can't wait to talk with you and Siobhan about how we can, because we're going to talk about Appa in another, because Appa's really cool as well. I have to say, I've been watching. I'm like, yeah, no, I want, you know me, you know what I do with priority mind management and how we help businesses and how we help coaches become the coaches that they need to be. And I think the biggest part that we do at priority mind management is it's not just mental health, it's mindset, because they're just interlinked in our past experiences. And I just recently as well, Dave, just got into psychosensory therapies, of which I wasn't aware of. So I've worked with some clients and we've not been able to unblock those beliefs. And you as a coach, and I'm sure you'll know this when you've tried to unlock those beliefs, and when you don't get that unlocking of the belief, there's always that, oh, is there something that I missed? And then I started looking at psychosensory therapies, and I'm like, now I know what I'm missing. Now I know what the
You
missing
see
link
the
is.
bridge between those things, and it's almost like you go, it was there, and you could see it, but you need it.
Yes,
It's like the view was blocked.
yes. So I honestly, I've gone into. I'm just about to do another video course, which is brain spotting. So within my coaching practice, and I've been coaching teenagers, I've been coaching CEOs and CFOs of businesses and things like that. Anyone that wants to work with a coach, I think you talked about working with a therapist and stuff. And I'm always a big believer in you don't need years of therapy, that we can get results much quicker with coaching. Is a really powerful tool but you have to understand how their beliefs are formulated and how they're coded. It's such a deep thing. And I didn't actually, that was the missing link for me. I'd done mind management, I'd done life coaching and all those and CBT and NLP. And then I found out NLP is great, CBT is great, but it doesn't unlock the limbic system, which is how it gets coded. It doesn't unlock the limbic system, the fears, and how it gets coded into the chemicals in our body. And I'm like, I never knew this.
And I get into so much trouble when I talk about CBT, right? So much trouble because I've looked at the original theories.
Yeah.
Right? Way back.
Yeah.
And CBT was never designed as a therapy in its own right.
Nope.
It was designed as a theory to understand which pathway to take from
It's only the logical. It's only the logical.
It's literally understanding which doorway to go through. If you imagine walking into a lobby full of doors, a bit like Alice in Wonderland, each door is going to take you on a different journey, right? If you understand your behavior, if you have that self-awareness to understand the cause and effect that life has on you and how you respond to it, you know which door to go through. CBT was designed as the lobby.
Yes. Yeah. I love it. I love it.
Because some people, I used to describe the therapeutic and personal development journey a bit like putting the space shuttle together.
Yeah.
Right? The therapeutic process is the engineering.
Yeah.
If you can understand that bit, you can then move your space shuttle down to the launch pad. When it's on the launch pad, that's when you need a coach. But if you put somebody on that launch pad and they don't have that awareness before they get there, you haven't designed a space shuttle, you've designed the missile.
Huh.
And if a coach works with someone who doesn't have that awareness,
yeah,
and isn't open to understanding their own kind of behavioral impacts,
yeah,
it's counterproductive.
Yeah.
And that developed the idea that therapy, coaching is an invisible scalpel.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to use that scalpel,
yeah,
you're going to damage people.
Yes. I don't know if I disagree with that a little bit. I don't think there's going to be any more damage done than what's been done. They might not get the movement forward.
Okay, let's look
go
at
for it. I'll listen to that part, Dave.
Okay, so if we as coaches,
yeah,
or as therapists, if we don't manage how to use that scalpel,
yeah,
then the person we're working with will take what we've done and they will use that scalpel with even less knowledge than we've got.
So now this is going to go down a whole new avenue, because now we're talking in the realms of, this is sent chills, Dave. Chills. Hang on a minute. This has sent chills because now we want to. This is what we're creating at Priority Mind Management, is a system that you have to have the therapeutic approach, but the coaching, you're absolutely right. But you have to be able to help people understand why things have happened in the first place and what they need to do to change, which is why life coaching is really good, because there's meaning and the schemas that we create and things like that. But it's funny how you say damage, because I would never. I always try and say to people, "You're not broken. You're not broken. I know you feel broken."
Being
That's
broken.
why I'm circulating around the world the word damage.
Okay. We can have negative impacts on the people around us if we've been given bad tools.
Correct.
And that's where coaches and therapists who handle that invisible scalpel poorly, they're passing that damage from that invisible scalpel on. If a surgeon explained to their patient what they were doing, and that patient went, well, I can do some of that, and they went off and they tried doing some of it, the chances are they're going to do an awful lot that they really shouldn't. The mind is the same thing.
Yeah.
And what we've seen over decades is people get bits of information.
Yeah.
They don't get the context, and they don't get to the understanding of when to use that knowledge.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you've got everybody diagnosing narcissists.
See, it's the diagnosis I've got a problem with. I don't, and that's one of the things we've always done with our coaches. Like, don't diagnose, just find out what is it they can't do and find out a solution.
Exactly.
Don't diagnose. Don't give a label. There's no diagnosis.
Yeah. And this is where you've got members of the public who are being given bits of information, without context, who are then either self-diagnosing or they're diagnosing the people around them. And that's where
you're never ever going to stop working, Dave, if this is your new mission. How do we stop that? Because you're right, because that's what TikTok's there for, isn't it? It's you've got your 5 minute, or you might be suffering from unresolved trauma if you have a sniffle, an itchy toe.
Google.
If you've got an itchy toe and a broken middle finger, you might be suffering from trauma. And then you're like, oh my God, I've got an itchy finger. I've got that. Oh no, I've got a result. But that's advertisement. So then you've got this clash of how do you advertisement? See, people thinking, Dave, I told you, I always walk away from conversations with you with like, wow, but I've learned something else.
And this is where, as the psychological hive kicks in, that awareness allows you to come away from that grooming that has been done for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
Because 40 years ago, we would still work off of the premise of green and blue therapy.
Yeah.
Get outside, get some green light into you, get some blue light into you.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden those neurons start to balance themselves out.
Yeah.
Now we haven't got time for that.
Yeah.
But people are starting to remember the things that as a species we knew 200 years ago.
Yes.
And we're starting to remember that 250 years ago, the pharmaceutical industry took us away from everything that we were doing before.
Dave.
Because we needed people to take a pill and get back to work because the factory needed everybody running the machines.
Dave.
And industrialization.
This got really deep. I love it.
That industrialization took us away from our psychological and our emotional connection to the world around us.
Yeah. And that's how the psychological hive is going to change, right?
I hope so. Yeah. I really hope that by giving people the opportunity to look at what their perception of success is.
Yep.
And go, I can develop these elements because I do them already.
Yeah.
I just don't focus on them.
Yeah.
So, for example, one of the big factors in the Psych Hive is understanding interactions.
Yeah.
If we look at interactions in any detail, there are generic components.
Yeah.
When we focus on those generic components and we kind of drive towards making those components as solid as possible, those interactions go the way we want.
Yeah.
What happens is we don't focus on them. We don't protect the interaction. We don't create the buzz. And all of a sudden, things haven't gone the way we want it. And we just accept it.
Yeah. I love it. I
You
love
know?
it.
I mean, a big one, I've talked about tub rating before, but massive factor in the Psych Hive is understanding tub. And tub is trust, understanding, and belief.
Yeah.
Right? If you trust something, if you understand it, you will believe it.
Yeah.
And if those are three elements,
I've got a feeling, I don't want to cut you off there, Dave, but I've got a feeling most when you're talking about tub, that's how cult leaders start.
but why? Why is it? Because the mainstream has already reduced the tub rating in the way it engages to the level that someone that does come along with tub at a high level, Donald Trump, Nigel Farage, look at all of these players who have come into the mainstream from out of left field. What have they done? They've generated a high level of trust among an audience.
Yeah.
Understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
And believe what they say, whether it's good, right, wrong, indifferent.
Yeah.
If people trust, understand, and believe it, they will go to the ends of the earth for it.
Yeah.
Our mainstream has taken that tub to the depths of the levels it could get to. Yeah. So nobody believes the mainstream. Nobody understands what the mainstream is saying anymore. So nobody believes what they're told. And cast your minds back to when COVID came out. When I say COVID came out, when we were hit by COVID.
Yeah.
I don't want to start conspiracies.
Let's not go down there, Dave. Let's keep it on point.
But when we were hit there, nobody trusted what we were being told.
Nope, not one person.
Nobody understood how we could go for 280 years being told you cannot have a vaccine for a virus.
Yeah.
Until COVID.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So nobody believed it. So why did the population go, no, we're going to have to make up the rules ourselves?
Yeah.
Because the mainstream had set it up by reducing that tub rating in everything else.
So you talk a lot about the tub in your in the book, because I'd never heard about tub until I started talking about you and I started doing a bit of research. But you deep dive tub a little bit more in the business in the book as well.
Yeah, and
fantastic.
And the whole point of understanding tub isn't so much how we receive information, but how we present information.
Yeah.
And if we and if businesses, especially kind of big businesses,
yeah,
if they kind of put a break on their messaging and stepped out into the receiver's post and go, can I trust this information?
Yeah.
Is my audience going to understand it?
Yeah.
And can they believe the message that we're putting out?
Yeah.
When you look at the most successful companies in the world, the tub rating on the message they put out is really high.
Got a question.
Go for it.
What is, and I know we've only got we've got about 7 minutes left. What would be the tub rating for? You've said that Nigel Farage and Donald Trump have quite a high tub rating.
Mhm.
Where's the tub rating for Bill Gates?
I think the tub rating for Bill Gates has gone from being really high
Yeah.
to being really low,
Why?
because I think he was caught up in a mass drop of tub, and he was dragged into it, and he didn't respond to it because at the time he was focused on, I don't have time to deal with that.
Right.
I've got to focus on this. And because he switched focus, more people dropped in their tub rating for him.
Wow. Because I'd noticed a change in, but I didn't know if that was the when Bill Gates was always kind of a leader in so many things, and then it started seeing again. I don't know if that's mainstream media or social media, but I just started seeing a change towards Bill Gates, even to like he's part owned Bragg apple cider, and his apples are not good apples that are going to go into it. So why is Bill Gates wanting to put Bragg apple cider, which is a great product, and then turn it into something that's not good?
And we can look at a lot of people that have been really successful or are perceived to be really successful.
Correct.
You know, someone I admire, Richard Branson,
Yeah.
has gone through the similar journey multiple times.
Yeah.
And he's someone who will divide the population just as Bill Gates does.
Yeah.
But it's because the population generally is also divided.
Really divided.
And therefore you start to pull your allies and your mentors to whichever polarization we've been drawn to.
Yeah.
But there's we can draw down on all of the experiences, and ultimately for me, what I want to be able to do is help as many people as possible
We all do.
to go, what are the building blocks that I need?
Yeah.
Not with the building blocks for Bill Gates or Richard Branson or the late Steve Jobs, rest his soul.
Yeah.
What are the things that we can do for ourselves? Because if we don't have those building blocks for ourselves, we will keep getting pushed over by whatever is happening in social media or whatever.
Yeah.
One of the key factors for me is the resilience that comes from hive mindsets.
Yes.
When you see people that are operating a hive mindset, their resilience to whatever is going on around them is extraordinary.
Yeah.
And you can look back at the very people that we've mentioned and go, their resilience to go through everything that's going on around them and still keep going is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And we look at a whole heap of what are those connecting factors.
Yeah.
And one of the videos, there's a presentation that looks at the difference between most entrepreneurs
Yeah.
and most successful people.
Yeah.
And why is there a difference?
Yeah.
And forward motion thinkers are what have been developed for the entrepreneurial arena.
Yeah.
And the majority of businesses.
Yeah.
But that forward motion thinking is dependent on everybody in that network doing what they need to do.
I love it.
And
I can't wait.
there's a reason why forward motion thinkers are the most at risk of psychological imbalance because they are dependent on external components. Hive thinkers are dependent on internal factors.
Oof. So we're coming back to the circle of validation there. Wow. And more successful people are, according to you, are definitely on outside validation or inside
Internal.
validation?
Internal.
So the internal validation, obviously there's going to be more confidence with the internal validation. We have to wrap up, but we need to do more podcasts, Dave. I just know for a fact we do, because I love the validation, the intrinsic and external. So that's absolutely fantastic. Dave, I am extremely excited to be able to do this podcast with you. Thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your knowledge, your enthusiasm. I'm looking forward to working with you and Appa and Siobhan, and us creating something pretty special in the coaching world. I think we've both got the mindset of how coaching, with the many tools that are out there, can make some massive results for people, which does move away from the therapeutic kind of part of the world. But I know that we're going to make something pretty special, so I'm extremely excited about that. Dave, you've been an absolute legend. Is there anything that you would like to tell the world?
God. Okay. What would I like
Got
to
2
tell them?
minutes. You've got 2 minutes.
Okay, everything that you need to know for the future successes that you want, you have already got.
Correct.
Your brain's already locked it in. What most people struggle with is finding where in the brain that it's been locked away.
Yes.
A good coach will help not open those doors for you, but they will help you find where you've locked that information away. A good therapist will help you understand why you haven't found it yet. I love working with the therapy world. I love working with Siobhan and what we do with Appa. But ultimately, what Appa does, what the Psychological Hive does, is give people a platform for their own success.
Yeah.
Whether they are a therapist, whether they are a coach,
Yeah.
whether they are a business leader, or whether they just want to understand why mainstream education is no longer fit for purpose.
Oh, there's a bombshell. And I love that. Oh, and as always, big love from Cuddy. Make your mind a priority. And we will see you on the next podcast, The Mind Management Mentors. Dave, thank you so much. I love that bombshell as we finished. I can't wait to get on another podcast with you and Siobhan. So this is absolutely fantastic. As always, big love from Cuddy and make your mind a priority.